Hello, I'm Jared Fry, General Manager of Medina TV, and I want to welcome you to our 2019 Candidates Forum. And of course, joining me as always is Jacqueline Rinksmeyer with the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you, Jared. We are once again pleased to partner with Medina TV to offer our viewers an opportunity to become more informed voters for the upcoming November election.
And of course, Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce do not support or endorse any of these candidates. This is just brought to you as an informational way to learn more about the candidates running for office.
All candidates in contested races were invited via certified letter to participate in the interviews today.
So sit back and get informed with our 2019 Candidates Forum. Our next guest joining us in studio is Mike Ryan, candidate for Ward 2 of City Council. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for doing this.
Why don't you start off first and just talk to us a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from the great state of New Jersey. I joined the military when I was 19 years old and met a woman from Cleveland while we were in the military. Once we got out, we moved back to Cleveland instead of going back to New Jersey, so that's how I got here. I've lived in Richmond, Brunswick, and Medina since being in Ohio. I've lived in Medina since 2006, 2007. I've worked in Medina since 1999, so I've been here for a while, and I have 2 kids with my first wife. My second wife and I don't have any kids together, but she has 4 that causes like the Brady Bunch and the blended family. So, but we're coming to the end of that. My youngest is bringing up the rear at 14, so we're having a lot more time on our hands now. So,
and so what? It's always great that people step up and participate in government.
Yes.
What is the draw that made you decide to run?
I think I like a debate. I'm a debater. I like it. I like government, and especially when you love the place where you live. I think Medina is a great place to live. It's a great place to have a family, raise a family. School system's awesome. I think the community is awesome. And so when I started going to city council meetings, probably about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, off and on, the subject matter, some of the topics that come up, some of the improvements that we're doing, some of the plans that got discussed, they all interest me because they affect your small town life. So municipal politics is much different than national politics. And so the topics that you're discussing and you're deliberating over directly affect your life. And so that was a draw to me too. So I wanted to, instead of just sitting back and saying, I love where I live, I want to participate in, I love where I live. So.
Now, as you look at even going smaller in the small town life, as you look at Ward 2, not council as a whole, but more of Ward 2, what do you see are some of the big issues that you would like to take on if elected for Ward 2?
Well, I think Ward 2 has both. It has business and it has residential. So, I mean, we have the square and we have the Giant Eagle and Bueller side of Court Street all the way down to Reagan Parkway. So it has a balance of both things you need to look at as far as economic business is concerned and then residential issues. Some of the things that drive me to want to run for office is that at the moment, I would like to improve communication. There's a lot of people that have complaints and issues, even though they're very happy with where they live, that we could always be better. And so they bring up these topics, and some of my experience of working in Medina, I know that there's conversations that have taken place that the people are apparently not aware of. One of the issues that I'm just recently talking about on my Facebook page, Friends of Michael Ryan, is homelessness. There's people who have an issue. They want a homeless shelter here in Medina. Having participated in some of those conversations, I know that you have to produce numbers. You have to produce a lot of numbers. And if you're one of the small numbers, that doesn't really matter to you. You're upset and you're hurting because you're homeless. But when it comes to the state and funding and all of those kinds of issues, and how to do that and drive that particular issue, you have to have numbers. So it's like I would like to get on a better track of communicating what are we talking about behind closed doors, and what is it that we need to share with the residents. So I think that my Facebook page is already doing that. I've already had a few comments. Hardly anybody does this. Thank you for just my post about myself and my biography. I have on there everything a little more detailed than what I shared with you. Thank you for doing that. People just don't do this anymore. So communication is the thing. We just need to communicate much better.
Now, would you say that same perception then, if we broaden that scope and go and look at council as a whole, do you look at the same issues? Are there other issues you'd like to see that you would like to take on if elected?
Well, yes, I think the communication is a broad brush because you just don't see it very much. People like to get names and faces in the newspaper, but when it comes to responding to residents' telephone calls and emails and things like that, from what I'm being told by residents and my own experience, it doesn't happen very much. So I would like to support people who want to come to council and change that in particular. I think that there are issues that we should pay attention to as a broader council. I think we have departments and department heads that do fantastic jobs, and so I think, or else I wouldn't feel like this is a great place to live, but the fine tuning and some of the things that we need to be careful about in our decision making process, I don't think we should rush through legislation and again, failure to communicate creates a lot of misconceptions about legislations and things like that. So I do believe that is something that we can solve both in my ward, but then also at a broader notion. But I want to be a part of the locomotive that is Medina. So because again, I enjoy living here and want to be more involved with that. That's about it.
Now, in terms of, you talk about some of the issues and handling those, and some of those big ones that come up, the first one, of course, I guess we can start with the parking deck. And being, if elected, then that's one of the things that you'll take on as a councilman. What are your thoughts?
Now, you're talking about
the construction of the parking deck that's going over by City Hall right now.
Right. Yeah. Are you talking about that because it's a parking deck and not a new courthouse? Or?
No, just in general. I guess just kind of your thoughts heading in as you see this being done. Of course, the groundwork's being laid of it being built and things of that nature. Yeah. It'll be something you'll have to step in as a councilman and be a part of.
Well, the first thing is that whatever has been approved by the present council, you just can't come in and say, well, especially after work's already been started, you just can't say, well, we're not going to pay you because all of a sudden we don't agree with this for whatever reason. Parking is a problem, and if we're going to continue to improve downtown and square area, and we're going to continue to renovate some more buildings in the future and make the beautiful square even better, which I'm all for, and draw more people that come to it. I mean, that square is an attraction for our city. So I think that parking is having a parking deck is smart because we don't have very much parking down there. Of course, there's always the pain and suffering during construction, but once you get past that, like we are now with 42, we can sit back and enjoy the fruits of the labor. I think once we get past that, we'll appreciate the fact that there's a parking deck there. So I don't have any intentions of doing anything different with that. I mean, I think it's a good idea. So.
And then you kind of touched on it as we were clarifying that last question.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the talks being held now in terms of the courthouse,
right,
combining them and things of that nature?
Well, I think we're at a position now where we're kind of set in stone, almost. We're putting the parking deck where it is. I know that when Judge Chase was still the judge, he spent a lot of years trying to improve the courthouse, get a new courthouse, whatever that looked like. I know that he took care to have some of his own funds to contribute to the construction and whatnot. And this is one of the things where I think sometimes we drag our feet for so long that we get put into a position now where here we are, and we have obviously very passionate positions on whether or not we should share with the county or not. My present understanding is that the Ohio Supreme Court did not rule in favor of the people that wanted the extra time to vote on it. So it's going to go forward come January. I don't know if the construction will already be underway. I'm assuming that something will be in place. What I do know is that coming from the 7 years that I spent working at the battered women's shelter, the municipal court as it stands right now is totally unacceptable. You have one room where a victim of domestic violence gets to sit, and it's in the same room as a copier where even the attorney for the accused gets to come in while you're sitting there and make copies of things, which can be very intimidating, very uncomfortable for the victim of domestic violence. There is just flat out a need for a bigger courthouse. Medina Municipal Court takes care of everything north of 76, I understand. So that's a lot of traffic in and out of that court. It has been inadequate for a lot of years. So I think that this is one of the things where you have to, I think we shouldn't be in the position that we are in now. I think something should have been done a long time ago, but that's the past. Where are we right now? We have a need. We have a great need for a better municipal court. So I think we need to move.
Now, another big issue, if elected and heading into a council seat, has been diversity and inclusion. There's been some legislation recently passed here by City Council. Kind of what are your thoughts and as you would head into a council seat and approach issues like that?
Well, I think diversity is a great thing. I think the more diverse you are, the better off you are. But I don't think diversity is something that should be forced. People need to get motivated to participate. One of the things that I remember Chief Berarducci saying when people were criticizing him about not having enough diversity on the Medina Police Department was he could only deal with the applications that he had. So, and he didn't have a very diverse group of applicants. That matters. If we're going to have diversity, people have to get involved. And so Medina, in my opinion, from where I'm coming from, I see a diverse Medina. Could it be more diverse? Sure. But I'm not for forcing things upon people because I sit back and look, everybody has rights. And I spoke at that legislation. And one of the things that I asked him was, I'm not for anti-bullying legislation or anti-discrimination legislation because nobody should be bullied and nobody should be discriminated against. What I wanted them to do was take it back to the committee and change the wording because business owners have rights. And for you to tell a business owner how to run his business, I don't agree with that. People have a right to free speech. We all have rights. And no one person's right, regardless of who you are, what you are, or how you see things, or what your political affiliations are, or anything, no one has the right to take away another human being's rights. And so I think when you do that, you need to tread softly. The fact that the national government hasn't come up with an answer on this, the state of Ohio hasn't come up with an answer on this, and the Ohio Attorney General, who recently has made it a position on this, which goes against City Council, should have been enough for them to slow down. Just because our neighbors do that in other counties doesn't mean that we follow suit. I mean, if they were, you know, the age-old saying, you know, well, if your friend was to jump off a bridge, would you? I mean, we have neighbors that have curbside recycling. We don't seem to be following their lead on that. So I think that's not a good enough argument to be doing things. So
I guess with all those, I kind of bring all those issues up as those are things you'll face in office, but also with those, of course, that's going to bring differing opinions, different attitudes or looks on things, whether that be from your constituents, from fellow council members. How would you balance that kind of opinions as you go to move forward and make legislation and things happen? How do you balance that constituent versus your opinion versus maybe what a council member's opinion is?
Right. And going into this, one of the things that I want to be very acutely aware of is the opinion of the residents. City council represents the city, you know, and the city is the people. So their opinions matter, which goes back to my original conversation with you about improving communication. You can't know what the citizens want if you don't talk to them, which is something that I feel separates me and my opponent, because I've been in Ward 2 for 10 years, and we've never had a conversation about anything. So that bothers me, and I'm a very opinionated guy. So that bothers me a little bit. That the people that I'm talking to don't know who he is, or they say that he doesn't return my emails. That bothers me. So understanding what the constituents want is paramount. Going back to the conversation about the homelessness, educating the public sometimes is important too, because they're of the opinion we're not doing anything. You're dragging your feet, you don't care. Medina has homeless, but don't tell them that because they don't know it. I mean, some of those kinds of comments. I've been in meetings where people are very passionate and are talking about homelessness. People here do know that exists. Once again, would it matter to the constituents if they understood how this works in getting a shelter? The numbers piece and funding from the state and where all that comes from. It's not just let's build a shelter. It's not that simple. Which is why we have the program that we have now, where it rotates to churches and stuff like that throughout the community. So I think I can't stress enough how important communicating with the people is going to be. At the end of the day, and I make no bones about this, my morality and my ethics come from my faith in God. I can't go against any convictions that I have of how to love a human being or treat a human being as dictated by the person I feel is responsible for life. I don't feel like I'm adequate to create my own morals because I didn't create life. So I feel like the Creator is the person whose lead I have to follow. And if you look at it, He just wants us to love one another and care about one another. And our obedience to Him. So as long as I can, take what I'm doing and keep it up against Scripture and stay confident that I'm on the right track, I'll let that be my beacon. So.
And I'll kind of delve into it a little more because you brought up some good points there. If you have you self-claimed here, you're opinionated.
Yeah.
But in the same standpoint, you might have constituents.
Right.
That may have a varying opinion of yours. How do you look at your seat as a councilman? Do you look at it as, you elected me for this position, so I'm going to do the best I can with my opinions and serve you? Or do you look at it as more as communicating, I'm going to listen to what everyone has to say. It may not agree with my opinion, but I'm going to go with the constitution. What's your balance with that?
Again, I think as long as I don't cross a line where I'm violating my own faith system, I think that when you have opinions, you have to be willing to be educated. You have to be willing to learn something new, and that may change your opinion on something. There's a lot of things that I have felt one way over, and then over time and being introduced to facts or reports or participating in research, I was like, wow, I really learned something, and that's not at all what I thought it would be, and I had to change my opinion on something. Going into this, I'm under no illusion that every citizen of Ward 2 is going to agree on everything. People are going to be disenfranchised because they're not going to get what they want. I think how you talk to people and how you respect one another and how you lay out information, I think that matters when you're saying to somebody, he's not doing what I want him to do, but I understand why he's doing what he's doing, and I can at least respect that. I know that what I want is going to be good for me, but he's made the point that it might be detrimental to the multitude. So in this case, I'll have to back up. I don't think there's as much confusion and hostility when you're not getting what you want, when the person who's not giving it to you sits down with you and tells you why you're not going to get what you want. I mean, it's like the child, why this, why that, why this? You take the time to understand. Supervisors at work, leading their people, wanting to know why we have to do certain things. Well, if I take the time to explain this to you, you may not agree with it, but you can have some buy-in to it, and that's how I lead. So I've been a supervisor and a manager of many people over my years of employment, and it's something that listen. This is, and sometimes you have to say this is what we have to do. That's it. You know, we have to go this way. There's a lot of things I like to associate that with the emergency clause. You know, I would love to have a conversation about this and debate this, but we have a deadline. We need the emergency clause. We need to vote on this now. Those things happen, and that's an example of how that would happen on council. One of the things that I look forward to is having more communication in forms of let's meet for coffee. Let's, you know, invite, you know, like go down the street in Ward 2 and just invite all the people that live on that street. We'll go somewhere, we'll have coffee and say, okay, so what are your concerns? What are we doing well? Give me a grade. You know, let's evaluate what we're doing. That doesn't happen. I feel like people get elected, they go there, they sit on the bench, and they forget about things they told people they were going to do, or, you know, the fact that you are elected. You know, it's the same way with our national politicians. You know, they just forget who sends them to Washington. You forget who you send to City Hall.
Right. Now, in terms of, quickly here, as we're coming near
Sure.
the end of our time, in terms of, we're partnered here with the Chamber and presenting this today.
Yes.
What are your thoughts in terms of business in your ward and in the city as a whole?
Right. I think that Kimberly Marshall, as the head of the economic development team, has done fantastic with Medina. I mean, I think Medina attracts a lot of business. We're not a metropolis by any stretch of the imagination. We're still what I would consider a pretty small to medium-sized community of people. But the fact that we have the square that very rarely has an empty shop, the fact that we have Owens Corning and you know, we just draw these businesses to our community already. I'm not so sure that I would go there and change anything or have anything negative to say about that. What I would say is that when we make decisions that affect those businesses, like city ordinances, we really need to take care that we're looking out for the best interests of the business owner, because they have rights too. Business owners have rights to free enterprise. And so when we start putting restrictions on them, what they can and cannot do, number one, that's not free enterprise. And number two, we have businesses who might be thinking about coming here who are going to say, no, you know, let's sit back and watch and wait and see what they do, because if they go down that road, we don't want to go there. So I think that's where I would say we need to be a little more careful, a little more deliberate. We seem to take years and years and years to deliberate on certain topics with the council, and then other ones we just want to push right through, and, you know, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. Now, lastly, I know you've answered a lot of questions here today, but I'll give you an opportunity to give one last message out to the voters. You can look right into the camera over here, and I'll give you that opportunity.
Sure, I appreciate that. On November 5th, I'm asking for your vote for Ward 2 councilman so that I might come to City Council. And again, the biggest issue with me is improved communication between the council and you, the residents. I think the residents don't have enough participation in their own government. On both sides. I mean, the council needs to work for you, but hopefully that'll draw you to come to council meetings as well and participate and observe to learn about the topics that are affecting you directly through council. I ask for your support and hope to serve you in the future.
All right, that's Mike Ryan, candidate for Ward 2 City Council. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you again.
And good luck this November.
Thank you.